mildly cathartic even for me to see you go through this process. So I hope it was for you too.
I mean, it was definitely mildly entertaining for the audience, I'm sure. I am out here willing to show you the dirty details that not everybody is willing to admit to. I mean, this is by far the best trade that I had made in this league in well over 2 years. What's going on, guys? Welcome to the first ever episode of the DU Trade Archives. In this series, we'll be recounting past trade scenarios in our Dynasty history, hoping to self-evaluate, to glean something from what we've done. They may be mistakes that we turned into positives. Not really sure exactly where every episode will go, but I think that's kind of the idea here is, giving some insight into what we've done and trying to learn from it, right, for the future. So with that being said, we're going to start off with one of the worst trades that I've ever made in the history of my Dynasty career. And Jake is laughing at me already. We're going to pop it on the screen here. Man, but you know what? This should give me some credibility, all right? That's what I want you all to understand, all right? I am out here willing to show you the dirty details that not everybody is willing to admit to. So let's get right into it here. I guess I'll just walk through the trades and kind of what happened here. Jake, feel free to jump in and stop me, ask me questions, whatever you want to do. So I'm Mean Machine in this scenario. We're going to go in sequential order. This started in 2022, so we're going a while back here. And what was really occurring was I had a team of unstable quarterbacks, right, led by Justin Fields. And I found myself in a place where in 2022, I saw things falling apart and I felt I got to get out, right? Like I have to figure out a way to get out of this dying asset before it's too late. So I made the absolute genius move of selling Justin Fields, my 2023 second round pick, and my 2024 first round pick the year later for Derek Carr. He at the time was the Raiders quarterback. He had just got that monster deal from them. So there was optics of security on the Derek Carr side where there wasn't really that for Justin Fields. I don't really need to, I think, tell the audience exactly how the rest of that season went for Derek Carr, but it did not end well in Vegas, and he ended up with the Saints. So still with a pretty significant contract, but clearly the stability, the security had kind of went out the window, right? Not only that, I had given up Justin Fields, who had, between the time that I traded him and 2023, kind of bounced back. He did kind of have a bounce back. He had some incredible rushing games. And that set it up to look like I had made a really boneheaded move. Also giving up my first round pick in that deal, which, looking back on it seems super foolish. It really does. Why would I feel the need to give up a first round pick on top of a second round pick and Fields for Derek Carr? Like, was Derek Carr really that valuable? I think I absolutely overestimated Derek Carr's value and underestimated Justin Fields' value, and just kind of didn't read the situation properly in general. So just looking back, I mean, on the face of it, that's definitely the first thing that stands out. Before I move on, Jake, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, the only other color I want to add to this is that second round pick that Billy traded ended up being the 211 that year and was taken with Tank Bigsby, interestingly enough. And then the 24 first ends up being the 111. Billy, unfortunately, in this league, even though with these trades that we're showing on screen, did find a way to finish in second both years. So I do think that, goes to show a lot of the success that he did outside of just these quarterback debacles. But I do think it's really important to show that, he, even though it looks like a lot of value on surface, it might not have been as bad as what surface health looks like.
Yeah, I appreciate that context because it does make those trades look a little better. And obviously my goal was to compete. And I did think that, Justin Fields was hindering me or was going to hinder me from competing. And I felt like some stability at the quarterback position would help me continue progressing forward. Totally misread the situation. Could have gotten probably 2-3 players instead that would have helped me. with all the assets I'd given up there. So definitely not the right move. So let's move on to the second trade that happens in March of 2023. So not a year later, but almost, where I go and try to again fix my quarterback situation with another questionable quarterback. So this pattern here, which I think I've gotten myself out of a little bit more recently. I've still, I think you can consider maybe me buying in a Russell Wilson, buying into kind of a risky quarterback, but I think I've done it in a much more cost-effective way and not leaving myself so open to feeling the negative impacts or the potential negative impacts of it down the road. But you can see here, I did the same thing I did with Derek Carr, which was overvaluing an asset that I don't have and undervaluing assets that I do have. So here, my genius move was to go buy Daniel Jones for Baker Mayfield, Tony Pollard, Brandon Cooks, and the 2023 111. Like that might be worse than the trade I made before that. Honestly,
I think it is.
That might be worse than the trade I made before that. So 2 boneheaded moves, leaving me open to tons of risk, both with the Derek Carr situation and with Daniel Jones. And if I just held on to Baker Mayfield and the other side of it, I mean, I would have been fine. So yeah, just a terrible situation there, misreading my team, misreading, the asset that I was trying to go acquire. So yeah, I mean, I don't even think I really have much else to say about that. It's just a terrible move. Do you want to add some context to what that 23 111 turned into, Jake? Because it feels like you might have that.
Oh, I do, actually. Yeah, it turned out to be Dalton Kincaid.
Yeah, so that's a really bad trade.
Yeah, it's not great. What I would also throw out there is there is some additional talent that I think you probably personally would have drafted at the 111 if you didn't give it up. Someone like a Sam Laporta potentially could have gone 111. He dropped all the way to 206 in this league. Michael Mayer at 204. There is a lot of tight end value behind that pick that I think you could have gone a different way with if you may have had that pick. That could have been valuable. The one thing I would like to also add, and maybe this is just something to be thoughtful of moving forward for all folks, honestly, is the QB market is really particular, and trading before free agency or right around free agency is risky behavior. And in this situation, Baker ended up landing in Tampa, I think a few weeks after this situation, and put him in a significantly better spot to potentially be the starter. By all means, last offseason, folks were tossing up the idea that Kyle Trask was potentially going to be the starter. But regardless, this asset at the time probably didn't look so valuable to Billy, and I can see why he wanted to get rid of an asset like that. But at the same time, it is maybe one of those situations where could the same trade have happened in 2 or 3 weeks at the same cost during this offseason? Probably. And maybe waiting those couple extra weeks instead of biting the bullet maybe makes more sense here.
Yeah, I mean, this was definitely me getting impatient, right? Like in the middle of the offseason, like I got to fix this quarterback situation. And more often than not, when I'm patient, it ends up working out a lot better in the end. So yeah, this was one of those where, and I know what it was in this league too. It's that it like snowballed on me, and it got to such a desperate point that I was like, I have to fix this situation, and I did it faster than I would typically do it. I think I went hunting more than letting kind of things fall to me. And then so I think I finally turned a corner here in December of 2023. Where I was able to add a little bit of stability to my quarterback room, though, not necessarily longevity, but definitely some short-term stability, especially with a team where, Jake mentioned this team has been competitive. Like it's a pretty solid roster outside of not having a QB. So if I could just fix that quarterback situation, everything would be okay, right? So I go ahead and I trade Daniel Jones back to the person who I actually got him from. Not exactly sure what the circumstances were there, but I guess the idea is he's probably rebuilding a little bit, retooling a little bit, and thinking like, he's getting younger at the quarterback, potentially all that kind of stuff going on there. And this is obviously before the injury stuff with Daniel Jones, where it's gotten really bad. So I sent Daniel Jones, Jerry Jeudy, and a 24 third for Matt Stafford. a necessary deal for this team in this league where quarterbacks are just very tough to come by. My team's competitive, so none of my first round picks will be high enough to go get a good QB. This is just one of those deals where, you know, if you look at the past deals I made, wow, I didn't give up a high round draft pick. Like, great, finally, I did something smart. So, you know, this one I think makes a lot of sense. Jake, I'm going to move to the next page, but feel free to jump in.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if you look at the date of it, Daniel Jones actually was already dealing with his neck injury, the second neck
he
injury
was.
by then. Yeah, this is the end of the year.
Wow.
You're probably touching right around playoff time in Dynasty Fantasy Football, and you're looking to tool up and make sure that you're competitive. I don't know what the value was there for the person who was trading away Matt Stafford. I think they probably undersold, in all honesty, just given the injury concerns that one should have for Daniel Jones, but probably looking at a younger quarterback thinking that they could potentially sell that for more value moving forward.
To be fair, we didn't know how significant the injury
That's
was
fair.
at the time at all. It just seemed like, oh, maybe I mean, he gets injured quite a bit. So, and yeah, this is his second injury, right? The neck injury. So
yes, this is a second neck injury. Yep.
Okay, so we'll move on. A month later, we move the league to sleeper because we're smart, and I make a deal where I again solidify my quarterback room further. Right, I already got Matthew Stafford, but I'm sitting there with Derek Carr, and sure, Derek Carr and Matt Stafford can get me by, but I no longer want to deal with this quarterback hell I've been living in this league. I got to get out of it, right? And I felt like I finally had an opportunity to do that. Now, the assets I gave up are not bad, but I was also able to trade assets that were non-QBs for a quarterback, which is more times than not an absolute smash, in my opinion. So I sent away Chris Olave, Rashee Rice, and a 2025 third for Anthony Richardson and the 306 this year. I mean, this is by far the best trade that I had made in this league in well over 2 years. And so I finally, you know, caught my footing, I think. But I do, you know, just going over each of these trades and kind of thinking back to how it all unfolded. This is kind of an example of straying away from your typical strategy, right? And letting mistakes get the best of you. Because I think that's what kind of happened is initially I set myself up for failure and not having my QB situation where I wanted it to be, where I needed it to be. And like I said, it kind of snowballed on me to a point where I was like, I got to fix it. And I got just so amped up about the situation that I kind of lost control of it, right? And that's what I feel like happened until I finally kind of caught traction again here and was able to make a couple favorable deals, obviously back to back, that Matthew Stafford one and this one for Anthony Richardson. So giving up Chris Olave, it hurt a little bit. My wide receiver room is dwindled, you know, giving up the Jerry Jeudy over time, but I still have a pretty solid room. I have London on that team. I have some good players. TJ Hawkinson. There's some things I still need to do, I think, to get this team right for the future. But giving up Rashee Rice and Olave for an Anthony Richardson and the kind of upside he has, I think, is exactly what you need to do in this, you know, for a team like this. So I'll leave it there. Jake, do you have any final thoughts for us in our first episode of the DU Trade Archives?
No, I think the Trade Archive is really going to help us kind of hone in on some of the mistakes that we've made, but really make this almost an exercise for everybody to kind of go through yourself. I think it's really important to kind of draw the lines between how these moves kind of move throughout time, because as you grow as a player, as you adapt, as you get better, hopefully you get better, that's the idea, you want to try and minimize the risk in which you're constantly going through. And I think what we're seeing here is Billy's finally kind of seen the light of patience. And the patience element is really important. By all means, is Anthony Richardson highly, highly risky asset? Yeah, he is. But at the same time, at bare minimum, he could probably trade him right now, you know, 2.5 months after that trade for more value than what he got him for. So that's kind of the mindset that I think you should be looking at, trying to make these moves and seeing yourself in the larger picture. But all in all, this was, you know, mildly cathartic even for me to see you go through this process. So I hope it was for you too.
I mean, it's definitely mildly entertaining for the audience, I'm sure, and just seeing me just squirm in pain. But no, this is fun. I mean, I'm all about self-evaluation, self-reflection. I love doing the hits, misses stuff, and more talking about the misses and why those things happen. And this is right in line with that kind of stuff. So this is very, very DU of us. I love this kind of stuff. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for our first episode of the Dynasty Underdog Trade Archives. We will have another one soon for you. Stay tuned, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and peace out.